Hello and welcome to Face to Face. Our guests today are Andrea Morrison and Ken Boone of the Peace Valley Environmental Association. We're going to be talking about a lot of things. We're going to be talking about the Site C Dam being proposed to be built on the beautiful Peace River. We're going to be talking about fracking. We're going to be talking about the liquid natural gas plant that is proposed to be built at Kitimat. And we're going to be talking about run-of-river projects. And we're going to talk about how all of that is going to tie together into one of the greatest environmental and economic disasters ever played upon this province. I'm talking with Andrea Morrison of the PVEA. Andrea, why don't you just say a few words about the issue as you see it?
Okay, well, the PVEA is the Peace Valley Environment Association, and we're located up in northeastern BC in Fort St. John, and we're very concerned about the proposed Site C Dam. It's been on the books for about 35 years, and it keeps coming up for consideration by the province. And it's in an environmental assessment process right now, so the heat is on. And we are working hard to make the province aware of this proposed dam and the environmental and economic issues associated with it, which will affect all the people in British Columbia.
Yeah, and I think people really have very little idea of how huge a project all of this is, because the Site C Dam, which is a huge project in itself, as I understand it now, is going to be used not to provide power for the people of British Columbia, but to provide power for a liquid natural gas project to frack natural gas, ship it to the coast, liquefy it, and then send it to Asia. Is that kind of the big picture?
Yeah, that's right, Jack. This is the second most expensive infrastructure project in the country, in Canada right now. It's an 1,100 megawatt dam on the Peace River. In northeastern BC, we presently have two dams upstream, the WAC Bennett Dam and the Peace Canyon Dam. And it's an $8 billion project. Basically, BC Hydro ratepayers and BC taxpayers are going to be footing the bill for this project. And it's huge, and I think more people in British Columbia need to know about it. And you're also right, last February, Premier Clark made an announcement to the media that 100% of the power from Site C would be needed to be used for the liquid natural gas plants proposed for Kitimat.
And am I right in thinking that the natural gas will come from the process that is called fracking?
Yes, that's right. There's some really large shale gas plays up in the Horn River Basin, and primarily the methodology used to extract this gas is through fracking.
Folks, you may wonder why you don't know anything about this. Most of us know very, very little about this, and that's a very good question. Because we deliberately are kept unaware of what's going on. That's the role of the media in this province and country. So, Andrea, let me ask you then, what exactly is the PVEA?
The PVEA is the Peace Valley Environment Association. It was formed about 35 years ago, around the time that the WAC Bennett and Peace Canyon dams were put on the table and consequently constructed. Their residents of the Peace Valley were very concerned about this third dam location that was proposed in particular, and the organization has continued and it's growing, and we have members from throughout the province now who support us. And
what's the goal of the PVEA?
Our goal is basically to stop the Site C Dam and remove the flood reserve permanently, and also to develop a sustainable management plan for the Peace River Valley.
What's going to be lost if Site C Dam is built and an area of land flooded? Maybe you can just tell us what the loss to us is going to be. Okay, well, we have
primarily we focus on the environmental and economic issues associated with the dam. I'll give you a quick rundown of the environmental issues and also just note at this point that there are significant economic impacts for everyone in the province of British Columbia. So one of our concerns at this time is that over 13,000 acres of agricultural land, close to 8,000 of which is prime Class 1 and 2 farmland, will simply be washed down the river. And in a time when global food security and the 100-mile diet is emphasized, it really makes no sense to just wash away this prime agricultural land that could be used to feed northern BC during the growing season. So we've also got concerns with climate change. So not only are we contributing to climate change by washing away this agricultural land and therefore having to be shipping food up from points much further south, but 12,000 acres of boreal forest is also going to be destroyed if this dam goes through. And the forested lands are a huge carbon sink, so it's important to hang on to these. And they also provide a lot of important wildlife habitat. In fact, this area is critical. It's the narrowest point in the Y-to-Y wildlife corridor. Y-to-Y is the Yellowstone to Yukon wildlife corridor. And with this dam going in, an 83-kilometer section of the Peace River will be widened up to 3 times. So this is a real problem for wildlife populations. It's a real impediment for them to be able to cross the river, and it in turn weakens their genetic diversity and their ability to survive. It just really seriously fragments their habitat and their ability to find cover and food and mates. So we also have a lot of concerns regarding heritage sites. The first non-native settlement in British Columbia is located on an island in the river, and that'll be simply flooded. BC Hydro's own studies have indicated that 177 known heritage sites will be affected by this project, and these include historic sites from the fur trading and gold rush era, prehistoric sites, paleontological sites, and also traditional and social religious sites for the First Nations, including some First Nations grave sites. And in addition to that, we have some very real concerns about the geological instability of the area. That whole 83-kilometer stretch of riverbank contains considerable clay, and it's very prone to sloughing. One of BC Hydro's own commissioned reports from an engineering firm actually states that they plan to address this sloughing concern by observing the slopes. And they've mentioned in their report 22 times that's how they plan to address that concern.
Can I ask you, what is sloughing?
Sloughing is basically where the banks are prone to slide, to landslides. And in fact, over the past 100 years, there have been 4 significant landslides within that 83-kilometer stretch, one of which completely blocked the river for a period of time.
Can I add to that it's my understanding that reservoirs that are created tend to produce a mercury in them, which makes the fish in the reservoir unfit, basically contaminated. Is that true also?
Yeah, well, that happens when the vegetation is flooded, and then the mercury, the methane gas is released, and the mercury can affect the fish. So we do have a blue-listed species, the bull trout, and there are definitely concerns about effects to them and effects to their spawning habitat.
It's my understanding that people have gotten very sick and died, never mind everything else, from eating fish from these types of reservoirs because they are so contaminated with the mercury that is then created in the reservoir.
Yes, that can happen, and that can be a result.
Can I also mention, I think that the creation of reservoirs throws off huge amounts of methane into the atmosphere. So this, as well as the other ways you mentioned that it's a threat in terms of climate change, it's also going to give off a lot of methane, which of course is another greenhouse gas.
That's right, and that's a real concern with losing, the 13,000 acres of agricultural land and then the 12,000 acres of forested land, and it's a considerably more potent greenhouse gas than burning of fossil fuels.
Okay, so what we're seeing is the loss of 13,000 acres of agricultural land, 12,000 acres of boreal forest, wildlife habitat lost. The widening of the river will make it more difficult for wildlife to cross on their migration routes. Loss of historical sites, loss of native sites, and this is to provide electricity to liquefy natural gas and ship it off to Asia and the United States. So does any of this make sense?
Well, it doesn't make sense to us. The provincial government has been changing its story about why we've needed this energy over many years now. Initially, they said that we needed the power to sell to California, but apparently the governor of California came up for a visit a few years ago and recognized that hydropower from Site C was neither clean nor green, and they said that they weren't interested in purchasing it. And then BC Hydro said that they needed it for about 450,000 homes. Well, then they decided that they needed it to provide energy to the Horn River Basin for that fracking and gas extraction. And then, as I mentioned earlier, as of February this year, Premier Clark says that it's for liquid natural gas. So, you know, the story keeps changing, and it's got to make you wonder. We do have information provided to us by economists who state that BC Hydro is consistently showing a passion to have more generation and transmission capacity than was ever necessary to fulfill its real purpose, which is to satisfy BC customers. And in supplying this energy to LNG, I hardly think that BC taxpayers and ratepayers need to be subsidizing the gas industry. It's a very lucrative industry to begin with, so it just doesn't make any sense, and you really have to wonder what price they're going to be negotiating to provide that electricity to the LNG, because we all know that traditionally liquid natural gas plants generate their own electricity through burning the gas themselves, and that of course is extremely cost effective, especially right now with the price of gas being so low. So I'm wondering how hydro can possibly compete with that, and again, who's left paying the difference? That's
good. We've only got about a minute left, but maybe you just want to mention the cost or finish off in some other way.
Okay, well basically I would like to finish off by saying that I really feel that in BC and within Canada we have the knowledge and the ability to produce energy through truly green and sustainable technologies, and what we're missing is the political will. We're in a situation right now where BC has the opportunity to start implementing truly green energy planning. It's an opportunity for them to shine and be recognized on a global basis and join the other countries that have proven that truly green energy options work, and you can still grow your GDP by using them.
And wouldn't it be nice if we could do any of that stuff, and maybe someday if this province isn't run by the oil and gas companies and logging companies, we can start to take some of those steps?
Well, I think we can, and there's an awful lot of people who are really trying to make that a reality.
How do people get in touch with the PVEA?
You can find us on Facebook. We have a few sites, but one of which is Say No to Site C Dam. And we also have a website, www.peacevalley.ca.
Andrea Morrison, thank you very much, and thanks for all your hard work on this issue. So our next guest on these issues is going to be Ken Boone. Ken is a landowner in the area and is also a director of the Peace Valley Environmental Association. So Ken, why don't you just start off where you would like to? Okay, Jack. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, well, we live, my wife and I, we live here at Bear Flat on the Peace River at her grandpa's old farm. So of course, we would be directly affected because of the flooding and the road realignment and all that kind of stuff. So of course that's what's got us, started in on this battle, and kind of indirectly got us really interested in, energy and electrical policies and electricity policies in British Columbia. And that's, it's a big, complicated subject, of course, electricity, but it sure is. Yeah, and because of that, as a response to that, we've become quite concerned with the direction things seem to be going in BC. I mean, probably the most recent, like
it seems like everything's changing almost on a weekly basis now with this government we have. But the announcement by Christy Clark that the Site C project itself would be needed just to power one of the proposed LNG plants. That was a real eye opener.
Maybe, that is a huge amount of electricity. Maybe you can tell people just what the liquid natural gas, the LNG plan is for this province.
Well, as far as I can tell, what the plan is to basically sell as much natural gas to the whole world as we possibly can in a short period of time. And of course, remember, we're talking about shale gas here, which there are some issues around shale gas with fracking, environmental issues, the use of water.
Fracking seems like, aside from nuclear power, one of the most environmentally insane and damaging things we could ever possibly do. And yet, here we are not only doing that, but putting a dam on a major river, causing all kinds of other problems in order to provide the electricity so we can liquefy this gas.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it just seems to compound it. The result of us, if we were going to carry through with all this liquid natural gas, the supercoolant of natural gas to ship it overseas, I understand they got to get it down to 160 degrees below 0 Celsius, and it evidently uses a tremendous amount of electricity or energy, and basically it's a net loss, a massive net loss of energy. By shipping LNG around the world, you're not producing 1 unit of new energy. It's you're just moving it from here over to there. And of course with our Clean Energy Act, the government dictates that we can't burn natural gas here to create electricity, or very little. They have Burrard as a backup, and then Fort Nelson has a station. But
I wish nobody would call it the Clean Energy Act, because, of all the disgusting names that these disgusting politicians give to the things they do to us, calling this the Clean Energy Act, it's a disgrace.
Well, and they seem to have a pretty good track record in that regard. Like right now, partway through this whole process, like the Site C dam's been, it's been in the background for since the 70s. And just recently, fairly recently, in the last, I would say maybe 2 or 3 years, all of a sudden they miraculously called it the Site C Clean Energy Project. It's a dam. And now I find it kind of actually disgusting. So now the preliminary part of the EA process, where they're basically determining the terms of reference for things that need to be discussed in the EA process coming up, it's all under the title of the Site C Clean Energy Project, and I just find that disgusting. Like, I don't doubt for a minute that hydro or government, want to put some spin on this and clean wash it, I guess you could call it that. But why do we have to go through a federal and provincial government thing, where they're calling it the same thing? So.
Yeah, because, the whole process, I think I've been through quite a few of them, the entire process is totally corrupt. They know in advance, and we know in advance, what the end result is going to be, and the end result is going to be whatever the industry wants. It always is. So here we are. We're telling people, basically, all we can do is tell people, here we're telling the people of Victoria and hopefully other places, what a totally insane project is going on, and if we can't stop it, then, we are just going to be massive losers for somebody else's benefit, and the somebody else, I guess, is these various corporations that are involved.
Exactly. Like this project, the cost of Site C is tremendous, and, they got it pegged at $8 billion, but worldwide dam projects tend to run way over budget. They always do, apparently, and quite a bit, and then that's, we're going to be paying for that. And then, of course, BC Hydro, with all their deferral accounts, they're billions of dollars in the hole. Like, BC Hydro is not only broke, but they're in the hole. And with the latest, Coleman's NIP and the BC Utilities Commission in the bud and not allowing them to bring the rates up where they actually have to be, next year, right in front of an election date. All they're doing is prolonging the pain for, the next generation to pay this off. It's like a credit card that's going to have to be paid off. And I guess probably the BC Liberals don't think they're going to be in there for a long time, and they're doing everything they can to stay in there. And unfortunately, whoever forms the next government's going to have to deal with this mess. And of course, it boils down to you and I having to pay for this mess.
That's exactly right. And I think a part of their game is to privatize BC Hydro. They're going to put it so far in debt that, just like other things around the world and here in BC, we used to own the telephone company, we used to own gas, we used to own a railway, and it's all gone. It's all been privatized. BC, our healthcare system is being privatized, and why not BC Hydro? The corporations want it, and they plan to take it, and the politicians work with them, basically, because as you mentioned, BC Hydro is now billions of dollars in debt, and we, the people who own and pay for BC Hydro, are on the hook for billions of dollars in future things that they're planning, including the run-of-river projects here on the coast.
Well, and that's just it. And I mean, yeah, and to me, it's a huge shame. Like BC Hydro, has been a really good thing for the people of this province, and there's no reason why it can't continue to be a really good thing. And but I mean, they've been cut off at the kneecap so many times by by this government that it's just crazy. Like you mentioned Run a River, the privatization, all those IPPs that are producing Run a River projects right now, right now, I live on the Peace River, I watch the flow of the river. They say there's a 50% chance they're going to have to spill this dam because of the high snowpack in the mountains. And, to avoid having the reservoir flow over, they got to get rid of that water. But meanwhile, I mean, on a daily basis, sometimes you see that river as low as it ever will be, and that's so that means they're getting power from somewhere else. Well, it's probably from the IPPs that are Run a River. I mean, this is the only time of year Run a River really produces water, or power. So now they're being forced to take that power, or they'd have to pay them not to take it. So it's a mess.
Now let's just re-explain that, because that is one of the most important things that's happening in the province right now, and nobody really knows what it is. BC Hydro and us are right now, in late May, as we're doing this interview, being forced to purchase at very high cost, electricity from independent corporate power producers. And BC Hydro could be producing that power at a fraction of the cost, but it's not allowed to. So we are paying a premium in order to buy power we don't need from companies that have damaged rivers in order to get it. And this goes completely, it's never really reported in the media. Nobody knows it's happening, Ken. Nobody here.
It seems to be getting missed, and and that's a shame, because it's I mean, BC, the hydro systems that we have on high snowpack years, they have to get rid of that power now. And of course, at the same time, all those Run a River projects are in the same situation. So it's not a good mix they've created. To me, they've gone totally in the wrong direction. There is other clean and green alternatives that they should have been going towards, but they, they're going for the lowest common denominator, the cheapest things out there. They throw this out there for bids from independent power producers. Well, the lowest hanging fruit that they could see was Run a River, and they went for it, and they got confidential agreements with the government. We don't know what they're paying for that power that I'm aware of. We've asked. They won't tell us. It seems to be a secret, and so we got no idea, but we do understand that it's a ridiculously high price.
Ken, we've only got a couple of minutes left. You had a little story about solar panels and metering.
Yeah, that's right. Like BC Hydro, they do have a net metering system where people, and we've taken part in that project right here, where we put up our own solar panels, but we're doing net metering. We didn't put any new batteries because we are already hooked up to the grid. And so, like right now, we're producing about 1,500 watts of power. It's even a little bit cloudy in front of the sun, but so right now we'd be putting power back into the grid. And obviously at nighttime or when we're using more than we're not producing, then we'd be purchasing power. But it's a really neat system, and hydro, it's there. It's probably the best kept secret that BC Hydro has, and it seems to miss out in the whole integrated resource plan that they're working on right now. They don't hardly mention it.
So this is something where you are producing power and putting it into the grid right from your place.
And it's simple, straightforward, and it's anybody can do it.
Ken, thank you very much. We're almost out of time. Maybe you can just tell us how people can get in touch with the PVEA, the Peace Valley Environment Association.
Okay, well, they can join PVA on Facebook at Say No to Site C Dam, or they can go on the website at peacevalley.ca, and then they can go from there.
Ken Boone, thank you very much. I really hope people start to follow this issue. It's one of the most important issues in the province. It is an environmental disaster and an economic disaster, and I want to thank all of you up there who are fighting for what seems to be a much more sane strategy. Thanks very much. You've been watching Andrea Morrison and Ken Boone of the Peace Valley Environmental Association. Thanks for watching Face to Face.